it appears Elon Musk could be in some financial trouble. According to reports, Twitter is auctioning off items from its headquarters and has not paid rent at its San Francisco and global office for several weeks. The auction will happen online starting January 17th.
Elon Musk has also sold about 22 million more shares of Tesla stock, according to a financial filing last night. The transactions took place earlier this week and are worth roughly $3.6 billion. So you think he's in some trouble?
I would not necessarily personally choose to invest in a business or see it as a hallmark of success if a month after it was purchased by a new CEO, they started selling off office chairs, bird-shaped paraphernalia, exercise bikes.
They don't need as many chairs. He fired a bunch of people.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But you can go
Maybe
online.
those chairs were shadow banning people, and they should out they go with all the rest of the censors.
Oh boy! Look, it's not a good look. The optics of it aren't great, and as many people have pointed out, most folks can't just decide to not pay rent and to make themselves financially viable for the short term. And oftentimes you see that there are these different rules for elites than the rest of us. I don't know if you watched the whole WeWork scandal and all of the videos and movies that have come out of that scam. But over and over again, you see people entrusted with money, entrusted with loans, allowed to fall behind on their debts in the way that regular average people can't do.
Well, I don't know. Small businesses sometimes, I think this happened in the D.C. area, have stopped paying rent, but there's no one else who's going to take over the space, so the landlord lets them.
We just came out of a pandemic where an eviction moratorium kept many people from facing eviction. And after the eviction moratorium lapsed, we saw an incredible rise in homelessness and people having to move out of their cities or wherever they were living to go live with family and things like that. We have an entire generation of millennials who are disproportionately living at home, and Gen Zers are never even going to leave the nest whatsoever because they can't even afford the room and board costs at the colleges to the extent that they go to colleges. So we're in a place where obviously the average person understands that they are not subject to the same standards as someone like Elon Musk, where he, in some spaces, is even being congratulated for his business acumen and being able to weather the storm by not paying his bills and selling off furniture. So this is with Donald Trump as well. He was notoriously sued for not paying his debts, and people considered him to be a business scion who we should be looking up to for his acumen. And so often it just boils down to cheating. So, I mean, do you see this differently? Do you honestly think that this is kind of good news for the job Musk is doing right now?
I mean, I don't know. It's too early to tell. We have to see what Twitter looks like a year or 2 years or 3 years from now. I think it's possible that he wanted to sell off some Tesla stock just to kind of hedge against whatever's going to happen in the market, and that actually buying Twitter was a convenient way to have an excuse to sell some stock, to collect that money, to cobble together to buy Twitter. That was one theory for why he was doing this entire thing in the first place, which actually made some sense to me. And yeah, he's downsized the company by he's fired tons and tons and tons of people. It could be that the company runs just as smoothly without them, and it runs just as smoothly with a fewer chairs. Maybe employees need to be sitting less and working more.
Well, look,
I don't know.
You're allowed to fire people. Yeah. Sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't. We'll see if some of those lawsuits come through. But you're allowed to fire people, generally speaking. But if if I'm paying rent and splitting rent with a roommate, and I kick them out, or I break up with my partner, whoever's sharing the rent with me, I still got to pay the rent. So that doesn't really, factor in there. In my view, although we should talk a little bit more about what you just brought up, the selling of stock. People online have pointed out that this is what Elon Musk was telling stockholders at the same time he was dumping those stocks. Matt Bender compiled these tweets. You can see Musk says, quote, "I will make sure Tesla shareholders benefit from Twitter long term." And in response to a Tesla investor, think long term and avoid leverage. So is Elon Musk kind of saying, do what I say and not what I do, and inducing people to have confidence in the stock long term as he's bailing it himself?
Yeah, I mean, of course he's going to tell the investors to hold firm, to that there's no reason to panic.
It's what SBF said as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems to me that you're still skeptical that this is going to, or that this should affect people's perception of Elon Musk as a good faith actor, or that this was a savvy kind of financial play that is going well for him.
I mean, we should always approach these people with a certain amount of both skepticism that they're acting in good faith and whatnot, but we should also approach them with a fair amount of reality in that they usually make decisions that are basically competent for their own bottom lines and for these companies. It could be that Musk has some unique obsession with Twitter. He seems very obsessed with Twitter. He spends all his time there, and it is causing him to make decisions that are otherwise a little suspect from a financial, strategic planning kind of position. That's possible. Or it could be he has access to a lot of information we don't have, and this will in the long term be just as Tesla's been very successful.
Stock is dropping significantly right now.
His SpaceX, wildly successful under his tutelage. He got ahead of everybody else, even though he started behind them. Look, I don't know. And he'll say things that make you question whether he really knows what's going on with Twitter. Like he said that, how important it is and how many users it has. I'm like, wait, you're talking about Facebook. Twitter is used by a much smaller number of people. But it's very early, and I could so easily imagine a world where everybody has to eat their words for saying, oh, crazy Elon took over and fired everybody and changed all the policies, and then all the people say, oh, it's falling apart, it's collapsing, it's not even going to run. A year from now, it could be profitable. It could be doing great.
It could, but you pointed out that he seems to not even know what's going on in his own company. Part of the initial Twitter files disclosures was that, it was like, red flag. This former FBI guy is overseeing the data that we're about to drop, and people are like, well, do you not know who your own chief legal officer is? I mean, that's a senior position. Do you not? And maybe it takes them a month, a few weeks to figure this stuff out.
Company. It's a million people.
But Robbie, if I'm buying a laptop for the purpose of doing video editing, then I'm going to immediately check if it has video editing software when I buy the laptop. If I'm buying Twitter for the purpose of righting the ship and throwing out the people who I think have done all the wrongdoings and clearing all the people who I think are bad faith, then that should be a task that you address before you have the very person you perceive to be a bad faith actor.
Because I don't necessarily trust all of the mainstream media figures saying this is a disaster, this is a sinking ship, this is the most poorly managed, it's all failing, it's all collapsing, this is the end.
We're not predicting the end or anything, but here's the story. The story today is that Elon Musk is selling off furniture, not paying his rent, and dumping stock. And you can frame that and spin that however you want. I think it is a mistake to read into that more than what it is right now. A lot of companies go through these ups and downs. But you said a second ago that you think that CEOs generally make decisions that are best for them and their business. I agree with half of that. I think they make decisions that are best for them. But with all of the mergers and acquisitions that we've seen over the last 30 years of M&A, crisis, 40, 50 years of M&A has gone wild, we know that a lot of times these people buy these businesses to get what they can out of it and move on. And you even articulated that this could be some kind of play that is involved with Tesla and all these other kinds of things. So I would not be surprised if all the people who sincerely hope that he's invested in Twitter, myself included, to make Twitter better, end up very, very disappointed. I don't want this to happen, but I'm seeing increasing signs of it, that this was never about actually making what I think is a very important website better. And it was about whatever these kind of financial mechanisms are that are going to make Elon Musk's life better.
I don't know. I think he's already made it sort of better. I appreciate these disclosures, and I very strongly appreciate knowing more about how everything went off the rails in terms of several important content moderation decisions, and knowing why and how people were suppressed without their knowledge. The number one thing he could do now that would be beneficial would be to just craft transparent processes.
Yes.
Because there is going to be content moderation, and it can't all just be on the fly, whatever Elon declares. Yeah. That's going to lend itself toward profound inconsistencies.
Right.
So we should know what actions are being taken, and then what actions you need to take to get it back into the good graces of the platform.
Yeah.
If you're being paused, if you're being limited in your reach, here is why. And here's when it will end if these steps are taken. And then everyone will act less crazy because it won't be some conspiratorial, paranoid, am I crazy for thinking I'm being limited? Just let people know, show them the way back, and have transparent, somewhat obvious, fair, unbiased rules. Is that too much to ask? Doesn't seem like too much to ask.
I completely agree.
I
completely agree. So if you want to purchase some succulents from the Twitter patio where apparently Tom Hanks once played cornhole, you can do that.
What are succulents? Is that like a cactus?
Like a cactus, yeah. It'll be up. It'll be up in January. You can bid on it.
About the only plant.
Help me let out.
About the only plant that doesn't die in my apartment.
All right. We'll have more Rising for you after this.